Welcome to the fifth episode of the Crispin Supercrip from Left Talk Ringside Report Show. Today I'm bringing you another Democratic candidate for Congress so that you all can get to know who he is, why he's running, and what his vision is for his district. That guest today is Devin Pandy, who is running in the mighty 9th District of Georgia. All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm here today with Devin Pandy, who calls himself a bipartisan Democrat. He's running in Georgia's 9th District, and he's here to tell us a little bit about himself, why he's running, and why he's the right person for the job. Welcome, Devin, and thanks for coming on my show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to be here with you.
Devin, tell us a bit about your upbringing, military involvement, and all your travels leading up to you settling down in Georgia.
Sure. Well, I was born in Belize. I'm an immigrant. I came here when I was an infant, moved to New York, and then my father joined the military in 1978. And then following in his footsteps, I joined the military, and my brother's footsteps, my older brother. I joined the military in 1993. Retired after 21 years. Have 5 deployments under my belt, and thank God I came home with some injuries, but I'm alive, and thank God for that. My upbringing, like I said, we're immigrants, but my father loved this country. He enjoyed. He was proud of his service, and I remember as a kid. So we became, when my father's first duty station was Fort Stewart, Georgia, and once we got to Fort Stewart, my dad became a Bulldogs fan and a Braves fan, and I still remember my father having us stand at attention with either our hands over our hearts or saluting as the Star Spangled Banner was playing before all of the Braves games. Mm-hmm. And that's just how dedicated my father was. And it rubbed off on all of us. Mm-hmm. And so, I retired after 21 years. My brother is still in. I believe he's got 35 years in now. He's finally retiring next year after 36 years. My fiance did 6 years in the military. My sister-in-law retired after 20 years. So a family of patriots, and I'm very proud of that. My travels. Well, of course, I traveled the world with the military, but it's a whole nother thing to travel the world on your own. And that's exactly what I did. So for the first 4 months of my retirement, I traveled, and I traversed 3 continents, 17 countries, and 37 cities. Backpacked across Europe and England, and I have lots of friends all over Europe, so I got to visit with a lot of them, and some of them even had people come from other countries, and we had big old gatherings. This was pre-COVID, so. I've really enjoyed my service. I've enjoyed my travels, and now I'm back to service again, and I'm looking forward to all the good that I can do for people.
That's great. What's your favorite place out of all of those amazing travels that you've had throughout your life? What's the favorite place you've ever gone?
I am not sure my favorite place. I'll tell you this though. I am I lived in Fort Stewart, when my father first joined the military. It was his first duty station. It was my last duty station. I bought a house in Augusta when I was stationed at Fort Gordon in the early 2000s, and I keep coming back to Georgia, and I finally settled in Georgia. So my favorite place, I guess, in the world would have to be the place that I decided to settle down. And I tell people that I wasn't born in Georgia. I wasn't raised in Georgia. I didn't have that luxury of, I don't have that luxury of having a home to go back to. I don't have a childhood town to go back to. I, visit my high school and go to high school reunions, and I don't have that. So of all the places that I've been, I choose Georgia. This is a beautiful part of the country, especially here at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. It's just beautiful. And then right now, it's fall, and it's getting a little colder, and it's just beautiful outside. There are some really, really beautiful places around the world, but I'd have to say that this is my favorite.
Even though I don't live in Georgia, and I've only really ever seen Georgia through the passing through on the way to family vacations in Florida, part of Georgia. But just hearing you talk about it and how much pride you have in it, that's really reassuring, because it's sometimes I wonder, if the people running for Congress, really take pride in the districts and the home that they're running for, the people that they're representing. So your website says you have a love of animals and have owned a variety of pets of all different species. As a fellow animal lover of pretty much every kind, except for bugs. Bugs do not count as animals. I don't care what anybody says, a spider is not an animal. Can you tell us what your favorite pet was, or a story about a pet that you really treasure?
Yes. Well, up until 2006, couldn't really tell you what my favorite pet or animal was. Um, I am a huge animal fan. Matter of fact, just today I stopped by the Humane Society, to so that I could begin volunteering there. My fiance and I were trying to decide if we were going to have a pet, to get a dog. We're gonna get fish, and I'm actually putting together my aquarium now. We're gonna do live plants, and
They're a lot of work, or they can be depending on the species that you got.
yeah,
But
yeah. So
I was surprised. I always thought, oh, fish, that's easy animal to take care of. And then my ex-roommate, she had an aquarium with a bunch of fish, and it takes some maintenance, but
it does, especially this. I've never done the live aquarium before with the live plants and everything. So I've got my substrate down, put down my substrate additives, and I just put the grass and all of the plants in today. So I'm just waiting for the grass to take root so that I can go ahead and start adding water. I got my CO2 canister today, my cylinder today. I'm so excited about it. But dogs are my favorites, actually. And if you'll look over my right shoulder, you'll see a picture of my dearly departed Tawny. She was the greatest boxer you would ever meet. She's a boxer, so she looks mean. The sweetest thing ever. And she was just so intuitive. Yeah, and on 3 different occasions throughout her life, she met pregnant women and would not leave their side. And one of them, we didn't even know that she was pregnant at the time. The only reason we figured it out was because Tawny had stuck to the side of another pregnant woman we knew was pregnant. And so we just figured, okay, you must be pregnant. And it ended up that she was. Like, Tawny was just amazing. She was also my um, my my therapy animal as well. So yeah, so
even when animals aren't called or labeled as therapy animals, they're always therapy animals.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Yeah, yeah.
That was my baby.
Yeah, and it's funny now you mentioned the connection with pregnant women. I have a disability. I have muscular dystrophy, and I use a wheelchair. And it's amazing to me sometimes how dogs seem cognizant more than people are of the fact that I have a disability. Like my father-in-law that we're staying with right now, he has a husky, beautiful dog, but he's super hyperactive, super hyperactive, goofy. gentle as can be, but just, uh, jumps all over people and everything when he gets excited. But with me, as soon as he's around, he tones right down, and he'll like slowly kind of climb up into my lap and give me kisses and all of that. But he's just like, he has a sense. He knows that I can't handle the same level of physical interaction as other animals. But I'm getting really off topic now. Sorry, I love talking about animals.
Yeah, so do I. We could do this all day. We'll have to do this again just about animals.
Yeah,
I can tell you about all of the animals after I start volunteering at the Humane Society.
I could tell you about all of mine too, so that sounds great. We're good, definitely set that up. Um, so your district is a rural area, and you call yourself a bipartisan Democrat, which I understand means that while you hold democratic values, you're not afraid to vote for the policies that most benefit your district, no matter the party that supports it. I've always been curious, though, and I'm sure there's a rather simple explanation, but with rural issues being what they are, access to healthcare, challenges with access to rural hospitals and healthcare facilities, underfunded schools, infrastructure challenges, et cetera. What is it about rural areas that make them generally more red when it seems like they benefit most from democratic policies, aligned policies? Is it just that they tend to be more white, or what is your take on that?
I I think that part of it is because one party has become very skilled at convincing people to vote against their own uh, against their own against their own good, um, against their own interests. And they say that if you say something enough times, that eventually it will become true for the people who hear it. And it seems that way, at least right now. Certainly in the past as well, but especially right now. There are many, many things that are being said that are not true, but are being believed.
Yes.
I think that it's really sad, and I really hope that I can get through, that I can break through to some of the people who are being lied to, and who have voted and may vote this time against their own interests unknowingly. And I feel sorry that they're being made to do so without their knowledge. So that's definitely one reason. Um, yeah, I mean it's a very large, detailed topic.
Yes, it is. But I think that you hit the nail on the head with the fear and being convinced of things that are just not true. So people don't know that they're actually passively voting against their own interests.
Yeah, for example, take take climate change. Like I said, this is a beautiful part of the country, and we have Lake Lanier. We have we're at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and it's beautiful here. The greenery in the spring, the fall colors, in autumn, and what I want to do is to create an environment where our natural resources are preserved. And the if left to those who only see fit to enrich themselves, or their donors, then our backyards will soon become pipeline territory, wildfire territory,
A wasteland.
It's already become uh, dumping territory for our water. We have another one of our down ballot candidates, June Chris, is she's filed a lawsuit against her incumbent opponent right now because he has illegally transferred um, material from one place to another in order to dump it.
I
I
live
can't.
in Detroit. We have a
Yeah,
lot of illegal dumping that goes on in Detroit, so, and it
yeah,
contributes so much to urban blight. And I know that this is different because it's rural, but in the respects that it destroys, parts of the city, I can definitely relate to how
definitely does. And then
devastating
it
that
seeps,
is.
yeah, it seeps into the ground, and then it destroys the plant life, which then uh, forces the wildlife to either move on or starve or it's difficult to deal with already, but then to have so many people believe literally one person over a community of scientists, and it's just amazing that up until 2016 we believed our scientists. We have people graduating, getting degrees from very expensive but very prestigious colleges and universities to get degrees on the things that they are working on, but we don't believe them all of a sudden because one person says that his gut is telling him something else. It
It's
makes no sense.
incredible. It's incredible. And I've literally seen people's whole demeanors and personalities change too, not just what they believe, but how they treat others
Yes.
change since this 2016. So if you had to pick a number one issue that is impacting District 9, what do you think you would focus your attention on?
Healthcare, hands down. Healthcare. Uh, healthcare. Oh my gosh. I get frustrated even thinking about these things. So, like I said, I spent 21 years in the military, deployed 5 times. There are people out there that have deployed more times than I have, and we go to foreign lands to fight in the name of the United States,
Mm-hmm.
and we fight for freedom, and we fight for all of these constitutional values and rights, and we swear an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and then we come back and we get out of the military or we retire from the military, and then we see that the things that we have been fighting for literally decades, as individuals, and a century or more as as an organization, the things that we have been fighting for are not happening, and they're not happening because our elected officials who promised one thing while they were running deliver something totally different when they're in office. I'm sorry, I know I got
Not
on
the
a.
transactions on the military. That's what
Yeah,
aggravates me is that they actually try to make it seem like there's somehow more on the side of the
mm.
military than Democrats are. And it's like, how do you figure?
Yeah, and so healthcare is a serious issue, and I honestly believe that in the wealthiest country in the world that the world has ever seen, that we have people who are uninsured, that we have people who are not covered medically. And I can't remember who said it, but someone said that we are not um, we don't have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system. We are not taking care of people before they get sick. We are enriching ourselves on people who are sick, and that in itself is sick. No one should become a billionaire because someone else got sick. No, it should not be that way. So I believe that that healthcare, one, it should not be tied to employment. It should definitely not be tied to employment. For there are many other reasons as well, but for this one reason, no one should lose their healthcare because their employer goes out of business. That makes absolutely no sense.
And
None. No one should have to pay $4,400 for an ER visit. Um, Medicare should be able to negotiate drug prices, um, and there should be a cap, 110% cap maybe on drug prices. There is no reason why someone just arbitrarily wants to increase a drug price because now it's popular because it's needed by 3 or 4 or 5,000%. It makes no sense. And I believe in capitalism. I honestly do. And I believe that if you create something that's great, you should benefit from it, but not at the expense of other people.
right. Great answer. Loved it. Piggybacking off of one of my previous questions, a common assumption about rural areas is that they're 99.9% white. I happened across a Washington Post article from January called "The Harmful Popular Misconceptions About Rural America." And it says that a fairly large and growing share of rural Americans are, in fact, non-white, about 22% as of 2018. We're more than 10 million people. Does being Black in rural America ever make you feel like a unicorn? Or what's been your experience regarding this dynamic?
You know, it's funny because one, I love unicorns. I do. I'm sorry. Grown man who loves unicorns. I really do.
And unicorns, we've got a lot in common.
So let me tell you, my father was stationed in Germany. This was like 1982, 83. So I was 7 or 8 years old, and they took us on a field trip, and they played. They took us on a field trip to a German elementary school, and so we sat with the other German kids, and we watched The Last Unicorn. And I fell in love with unicorns. I really did, and I've loved them ever since. And then in the Army, warrant officers. I was a warrant officer, retired chief warrant officer too, and we are 1% of the United States joins the military. Well, I'm not sure the number now, but less than 2% of the military itself are warrant officers. Okay. So you hardly ever see us. We are known as unicorns in the military. So it all fit in. Yeah. But you know, the answer for me, particularly in Georgia's 9th district, is yes. And the reason why is because it is mostly, we are 86 point, don't get me lying, 86.7% white. And so I guess I am kind of a unicorn here, but at the same time, you know, I do my best not to look at those statistics, because in my experience here, most of the people that I've met, that I know in this area, it's clear that I'm Black and they're white. I'm actually Afro-Latino, but you know, it's clear that we're different in some way, but it doesn't stop us from getting along. It doesn't stop us from interacting. It doesn't stop us from loving one another. And that's another thing that that I love about this area. Now we could get into other things that aren't so great in this area that have to do with race. But as far as your question is concerned, yes, this district is definitely um, uh, more proportionately white by 86%. Yes.
And then, kind of going off of that, this is rather heavy, heavy question, so I apologize for that in advance. But even before George Floyd's murder sparked national outrage and the uprising of the Black Lives Matter movement, Ahmaud Arbery, who was only 25 years old, was shot and killed by two white residents of a Georgian neighborhood, and it took months for any arrests to be made. Having this happen in your home state, I'm sure had to have a big impact on you and many other Black residents of Georgia. I know you can't entirely cover it in our very limited time here, but what are your thoughts about not just police brutality, but the level of racism, both individual and systemic, that exists in our country, and what needs to happen to be better and do better?
Okay. I feel that the injustices happening to Black and brown and other peoples of color, it's nothing new. It's nothing new to us anyway. It's been happening. I mean, it wasn't even new when it happened to Rodney King. It just happened to get caught on tape, you know, and it's nothing new now. We just have better technology and we're able to capture it more often. But it's been happening. I mean, you know, it was caught by news teams, you know, in the 60s. You know, look at you know, you can see an actual picture of John Lewis being bashed in the head. And so it's something that's been happening for decades. And until we as a nation are able uh, to reckon, are able to take a hard, honest look at racial injustice in this country for the past 4 centuries. Until we're able to do that, we're not going to be able to get past it. We have to be honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
And I want to address something. I understand loyalties and I understand tradition. I understand those things. But when it comes to the Confederate flag, would really like to uh, to appeal to my sisters and brothers who celebrate that flag, um, to really take a look at what that flag stood for. And I understand you may have, you know, great grandparents who fought under that flag. I understand that. I have a very close uh, relative who did things that I'm not proud of. I still love that person, but I'm not proud of the way they live their lives. And I will not celebrate that. And so to celebrate people, the philosophy, or the flag that represents the enslavement, the chaining, the shackling, the lynching, the hanging, the shooting, the beating of an entire race of people, simply based, I mean, period, but in this instance, simply based on their race, on their color, on their on where they came from. It is it's just want to appeal to their sense of fairness, their sense of judgment, of justice, and to try to place themselves, not even themselves, because that's too easy. If you have children, if you have siblings, everyone has a mother. Place them in a situation where they are enslaved, where they are beaten, where they are raped, where their children are literally ripped from their arms, sometimes immediately after birth. Place them in that situation and ask yourself, one, would you want them to be in that situation? And two, would you ever celebrate the people who put them in that situation? Sometimes it's difficult for people to put themselves in someone else's shoes. You haven't lived their lives. You may not have experienced anything that they've ever experienced. But everyone is capable of empathy. And that's what I'm asking for.
Mm-hmm.
Empathy, understanding.
You did an excellent job in answering that for being put on the spot with such a deep question. I just want to let you know. And I think that you saying that everybody's capable of empathy shows that you have more positivity, more optimism about human human nature.
That may be one of my. That may be one of my biggest. Yeah, that may be one of my biggest flaws. I do believe in people. I believe in the goodness of people, and I believe that everyone can change. That everyone can be good people, and I believe that all they need is the chance to do so. And as long as I see that someone is open to being a better person, I'm open to accepting them in my life. I'm not perfect. I'm constantly striving to be better. And that's all I ask of anyone else.
That gives me a lot of hope. Thank you. And to lighten the mood a little bit, if you were a superhero, what would your superpower be?
I were a superhero. How many times have I had this conversation and I still don't know?
One of those questions that you gotta ask it, yeah.
I think my superpower would be to have whatever superpower I wanted whenever I wanted on demand.
Being able to change it out. All right. Flexibility.
Absolutely.
That's a superpower for sure. I like that. Original.
I don't like to pigeonhole myself to anything. Yeah, I like to be able to change things up.
Yeah, don't stick yourself in a box. I make out of that. So,
exactly. However,
okay, I'm listening.
Well, I will say this is that it's nice to imagine things that are probably not going to come true, like mutating, having superpowers. However, let me look straight into the camera for this. The Iron Man suit is possible, and if you create it, let me know. I want the first version of it. I want one right now. Let me know. I'll pay for it. I don't know how, but we'll figure it out. I want an Iron Man suit.
All right, y'all hear that?
A tested, working Iron Man suit.
Can I get second dibs at least on that? Because I could really use an Iron Man suit myself.
You know what? I may have to.
It's my favorite.
I may have to be
my favorite Marvel character, by the way. My favorite Marvel superhero,
yes.
Definitely. So, Andrew.
Yeah, since I was a kid.
No, you go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go right ahead. I was just gonna say that since I was a kid, Iron Man and the Black Panther and Wolverine have always been my favorites.
Nice. I love all of them too. I love Marvel Universe as a whole, but I'm gonna keep getting off of topic. So for my next question, Andrew Clyde is the Republican you're competing against for the seat, correct?
Yes, he is.
Okay. I thought it was interesting that Clyde has listed as issues on his campaign site supporting President Trump and protecting the Second Amendment, because I didn't know those were problems that required new legislation or policy interventions. But I digress. What, in your words, is the reason you think you're a better man for this job than Andrew Clyde?
Okay, this may be a bit lengthy, but I'm going to try to keep it short. So I focus on the things that actually matter to people. And my main goal is to increase the quality of life for all residents of District 9, residents of Georgia, residents of this country. That is my main goal. I have, you know, if you go to my website, you'll see my platform, the things that I believe in: healthcare, education, veterans, farmers, ranchers, the environment. I believe in those things. Uh, good, good pay for people, so that they don't have to have 2 or 3 jobs simply to make the ends meet. You know, I support an increase in the federal minimum wage to at least $15 an hour, if not more. But I also am pushing for local or regional living wages, living wages that are tied to the local cost of living and that are tied to the rate of inflation. I support those things because that is what people don't care. If you are not, if you don't have stock in the stock market, if you are not trading, the stock market doesn't matter to you. The stock market is not an indication of how good the economy is. The stock market is an indication of how much more the 1% is earning. And guess who they're earning that from? The backs of the people who the economy is horrible for right now.
Right.
So,
how many times does Wall Street get bailed out when we don't get the same treatment?
Exactly. And so, I've never held public office before. This is my first time running for public office. So what I did not want to do was to walk around campaigning, telling people what I'm going to do when I get into office. How many politicians have you seen tell you one thing when they're running and do something totally different when they're in office? So what I decided to do was to show you what I can do while I'm in office. So as a candidate, I have created 2 pieces of legislation already, one on the state level and one on the federal level. I'll try to go through these. The state level is the Essential Workforce Protection Act. And what that does is that guarantees for our essential workers who are out there working, getting sick, dying, so that we can live comfortably. The Essential Workforce Protection Act guarantees them PPE. It gives them hazard pay, paid sick leave if they catch coronavirus, and 100% testing for them and their families. And what that does is that keeps them safe at work, it keeps their families safe at home, and it keeps us all safe in our community. And I think that that is very important. I pitched that legislation to 2 state legislators here in Georgia, Representatives Holly and Lopez. They have both signed on to it. They actually assisted us in writing it. And they will be presenting it at a future Georgia state legislative session. And what we're hoping is that once it passes here in Georgia and we take care of our essential workers, that other states see it and pass something similar. Because there's no reason why why we shouldn't take care of the people who are taking care of us.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so the second piece of legislation that I created is actually a framework called the Home for the Brave Act of 2021. And what that does is that provides for our homeless and other veterans in need the housing, training, education, healthcare assistance, and career placement they need to become self-sufficient. There is no reason why there's no reason why anyone in the greatest country in the world should be homeless, especially our veterans who have given up so much of themselves for us. And that piece of legislation I've actually pitched to someone in Congress, and it is actually with a congressional staffer now, and it will absolutely be a priority in my first 100 days in office. So,
You
like I
actually
said,
got two of my upcoming questions out with that answer because you talked about a couple of your policy proposals that I really admire. And the veteran one that you talked about, because I am part of the disability community. And although not all vets are necessarily part of the disability community, they are a major part of the disability community. And I know one of the most challenging things for those that are part of the disability community is finding affordable, accessible housing. And so that proposal right there makes you a very special candidate in my mind because you're addressing a huge problem. So good on you. That's awesome.
thank you.
So my next question is about the current representative of your district, and that's Doug Collins, correct?
Yes, it is.
Such a shame. So he is now running for Senate, which is what leaves the seat open for the new representative. But recently, just hours after the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the notorious RBG, which many of us are still reeling from that event, he tweeted the following: "Rest in peace to the more than 30 million innocent babies that have been murdered during the decade that Ruth Bader Ginsburg defended pro-abortion laws. With @real Donald Trump nominating a replacement that values human life, generations of unborn children have a chance to live." What's your take? And I read your response, which I have here. And so I know what it was, but for those of my viewers watching that aren't on Twitter or didn't get to see that, what's your take on that tweet and what it says of Doug Collins' character, and your opinion of Doug Collins in general and his ability to lead, because he is running for Senate, and that is also a really important issue, I would think, for your district.
Yes, it is. Well, first, I would just like to say to your audience, if you would like to follow along with this part of the discussion, you can go to Twitter and just search for @DevinPandy, and you can go and see what my response was. But yes, so Doug Collins, I'm flabbergasted. One, you know, he made that statement less than 2 hours after her death. This is a man who calls himself a man of God, who is an Air Force chaplain, and I just don't understand how someone who calls himself a Christian, someone who supposedly believes in loving thy neighbor, could be so insensitive and so cruel. It's bewildering to me. And then he followed that tweet up with a video. And in his video, he was talking about how he and his wife were blessed to have the option to allow their daughter, who they knew was going to be born with spina bifida, to be born. And he was saying that how great it was to have that option, to be able to make that choice. And I agree. I'm so glad that he was blessed to have his child, and that they are a happy family. I really am. But I want to ask him this: if you, Doug Collins, if you feel so blessed to have had that choice, to have been able to make that choice, and so obviously you know how important choices are, why would you take that choice away from someone else? Why? And I'm using your words. Why would you take that choice from someone else when at the end of the day, it's none of your business? It's none of your business what a woman decides to do with her body. and you have no idea why she's making that choice. And just to issue a blanket statement that no one should be able to make that choice is abysmal. Now, you lead the pack in saying that the government shouldn't come and take your guns. You lead the pack in saying that the government shouldn't force you to wear a mask. But at the same time, you want the government to force women to make a decision that really isn't their decision anymore. How can that be? That is hypocritical, it is immoral, and it is unconstitutional. And to answer your question, he is not a good leader. He is not a good leader. A leader is someone who has the ability to influence others to accomplish a mission, task, or goal by providing purpose, direction, and motivation. Nowhere in there does it say by instilling fear, by lying, by being immoral. Nowhere in there does it say that. So in my opinion, as a 21-year veteran, when did I become a non-commissioned officer? As a 16-year leader in the United States military, based on my perception of how Doug Collins has led in the House of Representatives while representing the 9th District. Not only is he a good leader, he's not a leader at all. He's not taking care of the people he's leading, his constituents. He's only kowtowing to his donors, and President Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And you had over 280, 300,000 people vote for you, but you're only working to please one person, and that person didn't vote for you? I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And I don't feel that he has any place in the Senate. None. He had his chance as representative. He blew it. He wants to get rid of the ACA. And in his own words, repeal ACA and not replace it with anything. That's what he said. He says he does not want to repeal and replace. It's bad enough that you want to repeal and replace and not have a plan for what you're going to replace it with. But he doesn't even want to replace it. He says repeal it and then start from there. Start from where? Repeal it and 120 million people? Don't quote me on that. You want to replace it and millions of people lose their health insurance right away and then start from there? Okay, great, Mr. $200,000 a year who can afford health insurance. But what about the people that you just took health insurance from because you didn't like the president who passed it? And that is the only reason. That is the only reason they want to take away the ACA. I will admit, the ACA is not perfect. What is? It's not perfect. So either fix it, make it better, or come up with something better to replace it with. If you come up with something that is better, I will support it. I promise you. I promise you. But so far they have not. And I will not, in good conscience, take away everyone else's health care just because this is not perfect. If that's the case, then let's get rid of the Constitution, because it's not perfect too. It once said that I am only 3/5 of a person. It is not perfect either. But we are not here to be perfect. We are here to create a more perfect union. That's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be working for the people, not getting paid by our donors so that we can vote in their favor.
Very powerful response. And I wasn't expecting to take it this direction, but because it did come up, you mentioning about Doug Collins talking about his daughter having spina bifida, and coming from a place of being a disabled activist, I do know that there are some in the disability community who have taken a hard stance on abortion because of the fact that many people with disabilities don't have the chance to be born and live life because they've started, to test, for the presence of certain disabilities and everything before birth. And some parents choose not to go through with it. And I think that that is an absolute shame, because as somebody that was told, my parents were told by doctors when I was diagnosed as an infant that I probably wouldn't even live to see the age of 3, and that they should just basically let me do whatever, not invest in physical therapy or anything like that, because I was going to die anyway. And my parents refused to believe that was true, and thank goodness, because I am talking to you,
Yay.
So, yeah, so that is a big deal in the disability community, and I understand that side of things. But as you said in your response, I'm going to read it here. If you wanted to ethically reduce abortion numbers, you'd support universal health care and family planning resources, not invade women's privacy and deprive them liberty, condone forced hysterectomies, and defile the departed. Now, that's where I'm like, if it wasn't for the history of when abortion laws didn't exist, and people and women didn't have a safe option, they were still getting abortions. They were just doing it incredibly unsafe for them and the child ways. Because in the real world, not every mother has the resources, even if they might want to be able to take care of a child. And, that's where I come in, where I don't think we can ever revert back to that. When we force it on women like that, then not only is that unhealthy for the mother in a lot of ways, it's unhealthy for the children that come out of situations like that. So I felt like it was my responsibility to kind of share that other side, because of my disability activism. I, by all means, do not condone eliminating your child because if they have a disability, because you might be missing out on the most amazing, parenting experience that you could possibly imagine. And my daughter has a disability as well. It's not the same as mine, but she has an invisible disability. And as a mother, getting to know secondhand what she goes through, it's opened up my views even more about disability and, how we have to be better as a community to treat people with disability. So I didn't mean to take away from you, from your.
That's okay. That's all right. Well, let me comment on that.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so I'd like to make it clear. Well, one, I'm so glad your parents made the choice that they did. I'm so glad that you're here today. and if it were up to me, there would never be another abortion. There would never be, because if it were up to me, women would no longer be, I hate to use such a horrible word, but if it were up to me, not one more woman would be raped. If it were up to me, women would have the resources to care for their child after birth. If it were up to me, we would invest in sex education and in prenatal education, and a lot of things start with education. There are a lot of things that people get themselves into because they simply don't know better. And so, I wish that it were possible for there to never be another abortion ever. I wish that it were possible that there would never be another mass shooting ever. I wish that it were possible that we could eradicate poverty and eradicate illness. I wish that those things were possible.
Or that birth
Unfortunately,
control was easily accessible so that women didn't get pregnant in the first place if they were not ready for that, which I never understood that argument. Let's not let women have abortions, but let's also limit them from getting birth control to protect themselves from getting pregnant. Like, how? Okay.
and then if you look at some of the, you take a look at poverty, right? And so you have these people who are pushing for, who are pro-life. And I really don't like that term because I'm pro-life as well. I love life. I don't want anything to die ever, and but anyway, they say that that they want to protect these unborn babies, and I can definitely appreciate that, and I want to protect them as well. But how about after they're born? What happens to pro-life after birth?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like
not pro-life, it is pro-birth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you go and you march and you scream pro-life, and then as soon as the baby's born, you turn your back. You turn your back and you say,
Yeah.
"Now for yourself."
Yeah, that's not acceptable. It's not.
Not.
So, I apologize for taking it off on a different tangent there. My next question was about the Home for the Brave Act, but you already covered that. So, and you kind of covered this one, but not entirely because it's kind of a two-parter. How do you think Georgia's handling of the coronavirus has been so far under your governor, Brian Kemp? And tell us about, you kind of told us about your Essential Workforce Protection Act. But as far as the handling of the coronavirus in Georgia has been so far, and maybe if you had been governor, what would you have done differently, if anything?
I am not the type of person to badmouth other people. I will point out when you are clearly wrong, and that's why I made the comment that I did about Doug Collins. But if you notice, I haven't mentioned my opponent's name once. You have, I have not. But I will say this.
You're nice. You're very nice.
My perception of Governor Kemp, I could be totally wrong. I don't know him personally. But my perception of Governor Kemp, based on what I've heard him say and the things that I've seen him do, is that he is absolutely inept at being governor of the state. And I believe that the only thing that he has been good at is suppressing votes. He was very good at that, at suppressing votes, at purging voter rolls. Very good at that. But when you come out 2 months after it's been made known that someone positive for coronavirus can be asymptomatic, when you come out 2 months after that known knowledge and say that you weren't aware that that was the case, and then even after that, you still don't take the steps necessary to protect the people of this state, yes, that is inept. That is inept. And actually, now that you have admitted that now you do know and you still haven't taken the steps, now it goes from inept to just shirking your responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't wait for the next mayoral election, and I can't wait to all right. Let me get to the rest.
Checking off the days. I know.
Yeah. So what were your other questions? I kind of got deep into that one.
Well, I actually was to my last question because the other one about the Home for the Brave Act you actually addressed already. And I always wrap up the same way with candidates.
Oh, actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I could just say one thing about the Essential Workforce Protection Act. I just want to say that when we went to Fieldale Farms, it is a poultry processing plant here in Gainesville. I went to Fieldale Farms to hold a press conference, and that's where I announced the Essential Workforce Protection Act. And I had with me a young activist named Arturo, and on the video feed, I had both Representatives Holly and Representative Lopez. And we announced the Essential Workforce Protection Act. And the very next day, Governor Kemp visited Fieldale Farms. So I don't know if that is because of what we stirred up, but I think I'm going to go ahead and take credit for it. I'm going to go ahead and take credit for that.
You should. Actually, I'm pretty sure that your assumption that it had something to do with it is correct, though. And that's proof of the impact that you can have if you actually elected. And fingers crossed, doing these interviews with Democrats, especially ones running in red states. I really hope that we up our viewership on my show. For only being my 5th episode, we're doing pretty good so far. But still, I think this is the kind of interactions people want to see. It shows not just the political side of you, but the human side of you, and how you're doing what you're doing, and you're running because you relate to the people around you, you have compassion, you have empathy, and you really want to make changes that are beneficial for them, not just to get a seat. So really, really hoping that you win this. And to wrap up, if there was anything you could use this interview as an opportunity to tell your district, to tell your potential voters, what would you like to share with them?
Well, first I would like to say to anyone who is not currently supporting me, anyone who is on the fence or who may be planning to support my opponent, I just want you to know that, don't look at me as a Democrat. Don't look at me as an immigrant or a person of color. Look at me as someone who is part of your community, who has served this country, who is a patriot, who has proven so time and time again. Look at me as someone who truly has your best interests at heart and who wants to increase your quality of life. Look at those things. And then look at my opponent and see which one of us. Don't look at the things that you're being told should be important to you.
Yeah.
Look at the things that are actually important to you.
Yeah. It's not really a team sport as much as it seems.
Exactly. Like it. Exactly. I'm a Democrat, but I promise you, I'm not evil. I'm not out to destroy the country. I'm not out to tear down democracy. I've dedicated my life literally through my father and then myself joining the military. I've dedicated my life to this country. I've dedicated my life to the Constitution, to democracy. There's no way I want to tear it down. If anything, it's protected more now than ever. And to anyone who is supporting me or who is thinking about supporting me, what I would ask is for your assistance in running a successful race so that I can represent you. And so if you would go to my website at Devin Pandy for Congress, the word for devinpandyforcongress.com. And I would like to ask you to contribute to my campaign, whatever it is that you can. I know that we are in hard times right now. COVID has stopped people from working. Whatever you can, every little bit will help. I believe that I have a great message. It is a superior message to my opponents, one that actually considers the people I wish to represent. But that message means nothing if no one hears it. And I need the resources to be able to put the message out where people can actually hear it, see it, and feel it. So, if you would just contribute what you can, support me today so that I can represent you tomorrow.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, Devin. And if you notice me glancing off to the side, it's because we went over what I typically spend on an interview. So, like, I have my my husband Eddie like waving at the windows because Duke, the husky that I mentioned earlier, is outside with him because he's a noisy dog. He's hyperactive all the time. So we wanted to make sure that he was not in the house, in his dad's house, while we were doing this interview. So I got to let him know he can come back inside now. I'm not going to make him stay outside when it looks like it's about to start raining. So, but thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
It has been my pleasure, Kristen. My pleasure. Thank you.
And we at Ringside Report all support you in this election, and I hope everybody does that watches this does make a small contribution to your campaign as much as they're able, because you deserve it, and the people of your district deserve it. So. Take care.
Thank you very much. Tell Brad and hubby I said hello, please.
I will do that. Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.